We work a lot with food banks is one of our major focuses. Food banks deal with massive amounts of produce. So like if you compare the size of just the actual warehouses of a lot of food banks in the Bay Area compared with the biggest distributors in the Bay Area, like the food banks are just as big, if not bigger.
Like for myself, I'm a first generation farmer. I got the bug and interest in farming in my 20s, and there was no like clear path.
Before that, I met Veronica and then Cole. I can't remember what year, but
2015, I think it was. Yeah,
right?
we met. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You taught me how to ride a tractor. Like you were the lead instructor.
We're not going to beat the huge distributors at their own game. But what we can do is we can find their blind spots. What a lot of those buyers that we work with have told us is that when they've worked with the big distributors, the distributors can't even tell them, what country sometimes the product's coming from, much less what farm it's coming from.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast, an Anthem Award-winning show recognized as Best Sustainability, Environment, and Climate Podcast, and named one of the best climate podcasts by Earth.org. I'm Linley Dixon, co-director of the Real Organic Project. We're a grassroots, farmer-led movement with an add-on organic label distinguishing crops grown in healthy soils and animals raised on pasture, without synthetic fertilizers or toxic chemicals. You can look for our label in stores, find a farm near you on our website, and tune in every Tuesday for new episodes of our show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. All right. Hey, Dave. This is new. We're going to have a quick chat between us before we dive into the interview. You and I were both in California just last January attending Eco Farm, and we both did some interviews. And today we're going to listen to the conversation with Brisa Ranch. And just wanted to ask you, why Brisa? Why'd you pick them?
I think they're great. That's why I picked them. I met Cole first at Eco Farm, and then his wife Veronica, and then their third partner Cristobal, and the three of them met at Pie Ranch, and Cristobal was a manager there, and the other two were interns, and they went on and started a great farm that's doing really well. And as it turns out, they're also very good at connecting with customers. And so they've turned that farm into a farm hub, and they're buying from a bunch of their neighbors, and they're providing food. It's very exciting. And because they're also real champions of real organic, and they really stand up at meetings. I saw Cole stood up when you were debating Kelly Damewood from CCOF about hydro. He was one of the good farmers afterwards who said, "We don't want this." So, and they were at this wonderful dinner at Pie Ranch where a whole bunch of real organic people came together. I had a great time with them. So that's why I said, well, let's let them tell their story.
Yeah, I thought their relationship between the three of them was really sweet too. And I was astonished at how quickly their farm has grown. I mean, they're producing over 40 acres of mixed vegetables, and that's not easy. So is there anything that you wished you had asked that you didn't?
Oh gosh, we barely even talked about how they grew the food organically. We got so sucked into the story of how they sell the food, which is a critical part of any farmer's story. We know that. And I think actually Real Organic is trying to address that issue, which is that farmers who are doing it right are being pushed out of the marketplace. It's not that they're failing horticulturally, they're failing in the marketplace. Why is that? So they're doing very well, and I wanted to share that.
Yeah, they're doing it differently with a lot of institutional buying, and that was sort of surprising for me to see in a food hub. So I think people will get a lot out of that story.
I know people talk about selling to institutions, but mostly it doesn't work. But they're really making it work. So I think we all have something to learn there.
But it's great. We're featuring Brisa Ranch right now because they're certified with the Real Organic Project. And we want to let everyone know that our 2026 applications are up on our website. And I always tell farmers that we have really high integrity, but a process that's really low burden on the farmers. As a farmer-run organization ourselves, we get it. So our certification is mostly based on that site visit. And so the process for you to get one of those site visits is completely free and free of paperwork. You just need to visit our website and fill out an application and tell us about your farm so we can see if you qualify for a visit from us in the summer. Thanks for joining me, Dave. let's listen to your chat with the great folks at Brisa Ranch.
All right, Linley. We are recording at Eco Farm 2026. Beautiful, beautiful place in California. An amazing gathering of people. And I'd set it up that I wanted to be able to have a conversation with my friends from Brisa Ranch. Did I say that right?
That's
Brisa?
correct, Brisa Ranch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Veronica.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation to have this conversation. My name is Veronica Mazariegos Anastasio.
You see why I had her introduce herself.
My name is Cole Macedegos Anastasio.
And my name is Cristobal Cruz Hernandez.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is great. Okay. So you three are partners in Brisa.
Right.
Yes.
And I would like to hear how that happened. So, but first, a little bit about Brisa. Like, what scale are you? What do you grow?
Yeah. Why don't you go for that?
Sure. Yes. So we manage about 120 acres, and we grow annual vegetables and fruits on about 45 acres per year. We grow a pretty wide range of crops. We grow probably about 20 different types of crops, more if you include different varieties. And on top of that, we add some, beneficial plantings and stuff as well. So if you add it all up, it's probably, I don't know, high 20s, something like that. We are.
When you say beneficial plantings, we're talking about cover crop, green manures, or something else.
I wasn't referring to green manures. We do those as well, like cover crops, but more. We do beneficial plantings of certain flowers, for example, with some of our other crops. So we do, for example, like marigolds with marigold sweet alyssum, things of that nature.
A host for beneficial insects.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, and we've been in business since 2018. In addition to operating our farm, we also operate the Coastside Local Food Hub, which is a food hub that kind of serves our community of farmers in our town in Pescadero. We're a small town of like 600 people, just about a little over an hour and a half outside of San Francisco, and on the coast. And pretty much it.
So, how did you all come together? How did you meet each other?
I guess I could start speaking on that because I was like the newest sort of to the area. So actually this year, 2016, it'll be 10 years that I moved out to Pescadero, and I moved out in 2016 to apprentice at Pie Ranch, where I met these two individuals that had been already either working there or had apprenticed. And from that working relationship, I know Cole and I were also kind of doing more management work, either at Pie Ranch or in Cole's his farm that he had was managing at the time. And I don't know. I think there was already a mutual respect. I saw Cristobal very much as a mentor, as being maybe the person that had was sort of at an earlier stage in my farming career. And in 2018, and maybe Cole can speak a little bit more to that, there was an opportunity to grow some crops for a business in Santa Cruz nearby. And we were like, oh, I think this might be an interesting project for us to do sort of like on the side. And so Brisa Ranch was born. I think it took us quite a while to get to the name. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. And every year, what was like sort of a side hustle, it felt like we hit our stride, and we're like, actually, this really works. And so Cole and I are now married. That was not how it started. We were so we went into partnership before we were married. Could have ended badly. And it's gone pretty well ever since. I don't know if you guys want to add something else.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the two of us, met the year beforehand. Yeah, when you were working at Pie Ranch, I was an apprentice there. And I think really what was, I guess, very pleasantly surprising about this is all the three of us were working on other farms, managing other farms at the time we started Brisa Ranch. So it was really a side project for us, growing a very small amount for some local businesses. And each year just kind of like, okay, let's add a couple extra acres, a couple extra crops. And it really just kind of evolved over this first 3 years or so pretty organically, to the point where after a couple of years we really were like, okay, we can really make this into a business. But the early stages of that, the kind of baby steps of it being something we were doing, while managing other farms, I thought was a bit unique in the sense that it forced us to really be deliberate of being efficient with our time and efficient with our markets as well. And it actually, I think in some respects, shaped one of the things that's unique about our farm is kind of how we function in the marketplace. We don't do any direct to consumer. We only do wholesale, working directly mostly with businesses and institutions throughout Northern California. And honestly, the beginning of that was really just because we didn't have time to go to farmers markets. We didn't have time to do all those additional things. And it's really allowed us to kind of focus in on that, hone in on how can we farm the way we want to farm according to our values, but do so in a way that's efficient in all contexts, from the farming side to the marketing side. And I think that limitation of time at the beginning actually helped us develop that model.
Yeah, no.
I love that because I have just interviewed, 3 farmers who were completely based on either direct to restaurant or CSA. So it's so great to see the diversity of ways that organic farms can go. So Cristobal, tell me first of all, what was your role at Pie Ranch?
Well, I think first of all, in the beginnings of the 90s, I started working in a conventional farm, and after 20 years, if I can say 20 years, I make the transition to start working at Pie Ranch as a facility manager.
Yes.
Because in that moment, it was that position was open, right? And then I can't remember exactly, but I think after 1 year, I started sharing the responsibility. Well, mostly for me, it was helping the farm manager with some of the tasks, specifically on the farm area. And then things happen, and I start taking the responsibility as a co-manager. But before that, I met Veronica and then Cole. I can't remember what year, but
2015, I think it was. Yeah, we met. Yep.
You taught me how to ride a tractor. You were the lead instructor. Yeah.
It was for me, it was more than a job. It was great opportunity to come back with and start implementing our principles and also integrity, because some of the youths, especially when they start touching the ground, the soil, knowing, oh, this is a place to grow food, they did more extrusion, but also history.
Yes.
In order to have more values when they start more growing more seriously and taking that work as a business or more seriously, right?
Yeah.
It was a pleasure for me to work there, and then as Paul mentioned, on the side, it was our side job. Start with Brisa, and also integrity, responsibility, all that aspects falls on our own decisions.
Yeah.
In order to have a beautiful, in that case, it was half acre.
A half
Yeah,
acre when
first
we
year.
started,
Yeah,
half an
more
acre.
acre.
Yeah.
So succeeds in that portion of the soil,
Yeah.
right? I think everybody has a different pathway, but I think they are really. I appreciate a lot your everything, and I think it's for me it's my pleasure to continue be part of the Brisa, be part of the planning process for every single year, and
Yeah, a life with meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
got
get
a
it.
little bit stuck a little bit, but
Yeah.
there are so many things to
Yeah, no, it's
So,
great.
so how old is Brisa now?
This is going to be our ninth
This
season.
is our next
Ninth
goal,
season.
8 years, and yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in that time, you've grown from a half acre to
45 acres of annual
45.
vegetable
Of
crops.
production, and then
yeah.
we're managing
About
you know,
120 we're
quite a
managing
bit of
total.
more
Yeah.
acreage. Yeah, so
the,
quite a bit.
the other land, is that just kind of protected, or is that growing a green manure that will then
Yeah.
become tillage?
Right,
Yeah,
green
it-
manure.
it's in that process restoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been left fallow for many years.
We're transitioning it essentially to
Yeah.
organic.
Yeah.
Is kind of, so we can use it in the future is
Yeah.
the biggest
Good.
thing.
Yeah.
Good.
And,
So, the matchmaker for your partnership was Pie Ranch. That was a place where you came together, you found something that you were looking for, and you found each other.
yeah.
Yep.
No.
Can you? So, of course, most people in the country won't know what Pie Ranch is.
Yeah.
It's famous here.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the Pie Ranch.
Yeah, Pie Ranch is an educational farm, nonprofit farm in Pescadero, and very much give them a lot of credit for, at least in our region, they're like one of those farms that really paved the way for transitioning towards organic. Like Cristobal said, it's an area that was very much dominated by conventional agriculture, and Pie Ranch, along with some other businesses, really staked claim to making that transition. And for a long time, for a while, they had a very great apprenticeship program, and something that we see now, they no longer have that apprenticeship program, but it's something that we're seeing is missing. Like, how do you a pathway for, like, for myself, I'm a first generation farmer. I got the bug and interest in farming in my 20s, and there was no like clear path. And so Pie Ranch was a place where they were doing that intentional. It's a season-long program around a pretty small production, but nevertheless like a good setup for that
Also,
learning.
With animals.
Animals,
the
right?
farm,
It was like an integrate, like animal incorporated with vegetable production.
So, the couple who started Pie Ranch.
Yes, Jared Lawson,
Yeah.
Nancy Vale.
Yeah.
And they're currently still, leading Pie Ranch. And actually, right now we lease. In looking at the sort of the challenges that farmers face, one of the big things of apprentices was like you finish the apprenticeship, and then there wasn't necessarily a like where do you go from there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that was always and so in trying to address that. It seems that the organization shifted to figuring that land access piece. And so actually we were sort of at that point when they were trying to think that through, we enter Brisa. We already had been in production a year. And so they had been able to have a lease on a much larger property. And so we've been there ever since. And so that's been really, I think we've been like in the right place at the right time. And from there now work with other organizations and landowners to try to, it's still a challenge for us. We lease all the land where we grow. We don't own or, have long-term tenure
And
in
we
any
lease across
property.
4 properties.
Four properties.
Are they contiguous, or they set
No.
up? Oh,
No,
yeah.
that's
No.
a challenge.
It is a challenge.
Yeah, you're like Dick Peixote. They're all
They're all
over
over,
the place.
yes. But definitely Cascade Ranch, which is the property that Pie Ranch manages, with Leonard Diggs really being the leader of that project, has been pretty important for us to at least, be able to continue every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the reason that Jared and Nancy Pie Ranch moved away from the apprenticeship program is because they realized they were putting out these people who are armed and dangerous and ready to go, and there was no place for them to go run a business, so they switched over to land access more?
You know, I'm not sure entirely, but I think I do think though that one thing we've noticed is across the board there's been, I think, a trend towards fewer apprenticeship programs in the last decade or so. Fewer. Yeah. So I think part of that is, I think like private for-profit farms are no longer able to offer them and say they work historic. It's illegal, of course. I think some of the other programs.
Where's the workman's comp?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the minimum wage?
Right.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, there's some other groups. I think some universities have also kind of moved away from that model as well. I think it's, you know, I'd like to see more of that, to be honest, because I think there's fewer young folks now than there were when we were coming up, and so I would like to see that as kind of like a trend. I think something that's very important to us as an operation, and I think a big part of the motivation for us operating Coastside Local Food Hub is we want to have more pathways, especially in our community, for folks just developing their own businesses, especially folks who have been working on their farms and just kind of really want to get their foot in the door. And we see the food hub as a way that we can develop the markets to where people are able to sort of like grow specifically for those markets and just have kind of a turnkey entry into having a farm business from a market perspective. You know, so far we've been operating the food hub for the last 2 years, and it's been going really well. I think we aggregated like a couple $1 million of produce last year, and as part of the food hub.
Excuse me, Cole.
Yeah.
So the food hub, for people who don't know, which includes me, really.
Sure.
So a food hub is a place where you are bringing in from different farms.
We're aggregating.
And aggregating it and then selling it
Yep.
as a cooperative in
It's
essence.
It's cooperative in spirit, not in like official.
Not
right
in
now,
legal terms,
we're still operating it ourselves. But yes, the idea is that we are sort of doing the work post harvest, like what a lot of farmers end up doing, which is having the cold storage on farm, making the connections with buyers, doing the last mile, you know, the freight to further, you know, and we are sort of trying to take that on and do so for several farms as opposed to do it. We were already doing it for our own operation. And so, you know.
And now we work with about 15 farms in total. As part of that.
15 farms.
15 farms.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, you guys were pretty good at processing and marketing and delivering. You were good at that.
Right.
And the other farms maybe weren't as good, or just, you know, as a small farm, it's very hard to do everything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard.
You have a partnership of 3 people leading it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, we saw that there's a wide range of need, right? Some of the seasoned farmers that we work with that are focused mostly in direct to consumer, they're doing their thing. They do some wholesale, right? But they wouldn't mind access to some like larger, maybe institutional buyers, but that goes a bit outside of their wheelhouse. So now by working with us, they can continue doing what they do best and still be able to kind of be considered for some other purchases. On the other end of that spectrum, you have folks that it's like, I want to farm. That's what I know how to do best. I do not want to deal with the marketing and any of that. In some cases, folks that, you know, we are working with some farmers out in Monterey County, which it's about an hour and a half or so in Santa Cruz County, and they don't even have coolers. So they basically are used to growing product and having to sell it to the closest, here they call them coolers, but it's essentially a distributor at a price that they really have very little control over. And so Food Hub model is very much trying to get at that, and like through having some level of aggregated infrastructure, be able to give farmers a little bit better control over their pricing.
So this is really interesting. I was just having a conversation with a woman. She was asking me, well, what do you think of this idea of kind of marketing cooperatively?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to figure out how do we survive in a system that is demanding large-scale suppliers, because everything's consolidated.
Right.
The distributors are consolidated, the retail is consolidated, and the producers are consolidated.
Right.
And of course, you know, Driscoll's is a perfect example of a very large company that actually doesn't farm. They just contract with farmers, and then they're the marketers, and they're very good at that. They're very good at the processing and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So this is one model for trying to figure out how do small human scale farms survive in a world that is not very friendly to that scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And
I think it's that, and I think the goal of the food hub also is that it gives a power as a food hub to essentially try to market directly with some of the larger buyers that are still offering good prices. And by that, I'm referring mostly to institutional buyers is kind of one of our main focuses of the food hub. So
Can you give me an example
Yeah,
of
yeah,
an
definitely.
institutional buyer?
So we work a lot with food banks is one of our major focuses. Food banks deal with massive amounts of produce. So like if you compare the size of just the actual warehouses of a lot of food banks in the Bay Area compared with the biggest distributors in the Bay Area, like the food banks are just as big, if not bigger, because they're feeding about a quarter of the Bay Area's population.
Say that again, Cole, slowly.
Food banks are feeding about a quarter of the Bay Area's population, the San Francisco Bay Area's population. And
About
so-
a quarter
Yeah.
of the population of San Francisco is deriving some
the Bay
or
Area,
a lot of their
like
food.
the wider
Bay
Bay
Area,
Area.
the bigger,
There's
greater,
like five
greater Bay
Bay
Area.
Area. Like, yeah.
So it's a massive amount of produce that they're moving.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, it's bigger than Whole Foods, bigger than Cisco, it's bigger than any of the major distributors. And historically, they get their food from a lot of different sources, but it's often been through distributors in the past. What we have been trying to do with the food hub model is saying, look, we know that you as a food bank want to source locally. You want to work with small farmers. You want to focus on the quality of the produce you're getting. We know it's very challenging because you don't have the personnel to be calling, every individual farmer, being like, "What do you have? What do you have?" Instead, they really want it to be a centralized process, sort of similar to what a distributor can offer, but doing so where the produce is not changing hands so many times and being marked up over and over and over again. So via some of the contracts that we've had with the food banks here in Northern California, we've been able to move a lot of produce, a good chunk of which has been crop plant, which is awesome. So we've been able to tell farmers in advance, like, this buyer wants this many pallets of collard greens, like this week, and so on. And we have other contracts that are more just open market, where they'll request certain items based on an aggregated price sheet that we put out each week. And that's really been an important component. We also work with school districts and hospitals and universities. We're really trying to get more and more in the university space as well, because it's another space that is moving large volumes.
Yeah.
And our goal to a large degree is how can we find these partner institutions, partner organizations, partner companies that have the same vision of they want to see more small farms and they want to source their produce well, but logistically they've struggled to find a way of doing it, working with farms independently. But if we work together as a food hub system and we aggregate our produce and we market it, where it's one point of contact for that buyer, then it changes the dynamic where they actually can work with us, as opposed to having to go to a major distributor that's giving poor prices to farmers. So that's really been our focus is how can we open up new markets? How can we shift the markets that are there to really make it easy enough for them to work with a food hub like us, that the end result is it's better pricing for farmers.
Yeah, and better food for the people,
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
clients of the
Totally.
food hub,
Yeah.
of the food
banks.
bank.
Yeah.
So the food banks have money; they pay you.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Where did they get that?
right now, right, no, it's a really good point. Right now, that's been an effort, and it's been a organizations have been, several organizations have been involved. But the local food purchasing assistance program, is that what it's called? It's LFPA, I know the acronym. It's been federal funding that has been given to the states. And this is all like remnants of the pandemic era, when we saw that, supply chain sort of fell apart. And we wanted to sort of deal with this two-prong issue, we have increasing degrees of food insecurity, and our small farmers are struggling to sell their product. And so the idea was through this, federal then state program, to then work with aggregators, so sort of more localized distribution to work. So we were partnered with the SF Marin Food Bank. And so over 2 years now, we were able to do that. And of course, the funding situation has changed, but we've been really impressed by, they were so interested in continuing to do this, that right now, I think they're finding alternative fundraising and funding mechanisms to at least continue this in some way. But I think what we've been able to demonstrate is that it is possible. Like the idea of volume, when it's coordinated and thought through and done in advance, like you could pull the amount of product that you want from smaller producers as long as it's done very intentionally.
That's brilliant. That's great. I had heard that the USDA completely cut off the funding for that food shelf,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
sourcing
been.
from farms.
Yeah, they cut the federal funding recently, or I guess it's in this past year, but the funding is kind of expiring. I think by this spring essentially. The food banks though have their own alternative funding sources. Some from other federal programs, some from other programs that are via the state, some local municipalities as well. They have such a wide range of funding, and because of the success of that program, working with sort of the 5 Bay Area food banks, they're going to utilize other funds that they have elsewhere, and then just continue working with us, which is great.
Yeah.
And so we're very excited about that, and we really want that to be something that is grown in the future and replicated, because I think the great opportunity with the LFPA funding, we'd love to see it just continue as it has been, but the great thing about it also was that it gave the opportunity for food hubs, which are just representing relatively smaller growers, to prove themselves essentially that they can be moving these types of volumes. And to give an example of the volumes, with one of the contracts that we had last year with a program that was called Boundless, organized by the kind of 5 major Bay Area food banks that feed all of the greater San Francisco Bay Area, we were moving about like 36 pallets a week of produce, into that, all of which was crop planned beforehand, so farmers knew what they would be growing. We're doing the same thing again this year, and I think that's really the goal: is how can we develop those relationships with folks who otherwise would be going to major distributors that just don't treat farmers well, and then shift the way that they purchase to working with us. It obviously is a learning process, and obviously there's work to be done on both sides in terms of us making it as easy for them to do so. But I think that's the direction we'd love to see things go. Yeah.
It's great. If, let's just say, here's a pallet, you got 36 pallets, let's take one pallet, and either you might conceivably be able to sell that pallet to the Whole Foods in Mill Valley, and which used to buy 50 pallets, but now they buy 1 pallet, right? That, we know that's changed.
Yeah.
But the price that you might get if you were delivering it to that Whole Foods compared to if you were delivering it to the food bank, where is the difference?
It's a really good question. I think the pricing component is interesting, because we spend a lot of time working with the food banks on trying to figure out what is the price point that needs to be hit. And what we often find is we see distributors' price sheets, and we know what they charge to their end users. We charge a bit more, but it's not that much more. It's a matter of degrees in terms of the difference. Yeah. The difference, though, is that the farmers that we're sourcing from are getting the vast majority of the value of that price. Yeah. Well, if they're getting it from a distributor, the farmer's getting often under 10% of that price. And
really?
So, yeah. In many cases, yes. We know from farms that work with some of the big distributors in terms of sending their product to them, and then it gets from them to another distributor, and it kind of gets prices eaten up. So I think the goal here is how can we have as few hands changed in terms of getting it to the end user, to keep the prices as competitive as possible, so that the majority of the money is staying with the farmer.
Yeah. And I think Whole Foods more broadly, I think, had a tradition of, or like a good record of working with farmers directly. I think that obviously has dwindled over time. And so now the idea is like, okay, can we, through this mechanism of having this like farmer-led, really like that has a close relationship with farmers, is this an alternative way that we can like regain those type of relationships that maybe in this consolidation that you mentioned have been lost because you're trying to get the lowest price point.
So I'm sorry, Veronica. Say that slowly, just so I understand.
Yeah.
So what was it that was lost?
I think that increasingly large retailers, especially as there's been merging and consolidation.
Big consolidation.
Even those that had the values of working directly with farmers, that has decreased. Like we used to, like one of our first major contracts as a farm business, this is pre-Food Hub, we were the sole organic pumpkin provider for Whole Foods for the state of California and Nevada. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. It was
That's a lot of pumpkins.
Yes, a lot of pumpkins. And it was great. Honestly, this was what, like
2021, I believe it was.
or something like
Yeah,
that. It was
something-
a while,
yeah,
not that
something
long
like
ago.
2020 or 2021. Yeah.
And it was an interesting project. It's something that we started off working with winter squashes. It's something that we do pretty, like it's something that we felt really comfortable doing. In fact, our region sort of historically is known for pumpkins. And anyway, we started that. We did that for like a couple years, and I think we saw that there was definitely a shift away from that,
Away from sourcing.
from
directly
sourcing
small
directly,
farms.
and so it just no longer worked for us to do that.
The chain no longer was interested in buying from a farm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think at
Why do you
least the
think that
pricing that
is?
was offered was,
It got worse.
it got worse, basically.
Is pricing, I think also like degree of honoring commitments is one of the challenges as well. I think that was a challenge. And I think to a large degree, the concern that we see a lot in the distribution space or the purchasing space is just the consolidation's out of control. There's so few distributors now. It seems like there's a lot because there's a lot of different names, but if you actually look up like, who owns what, there's very few parent companies that kind of own everything. And in turn, they're really dictating the market in terms of pricing.
In distribution.
In distribution, but even, grocery
retailers.
stores as well.
And in retail.
In retailers,
Retail,
We got like 6 companies that own all the
Yeah.
supermarkets. in
Exactly.
America.
I mean, the Bay Area, there's so few independent grocery stores anymore. There's almost none.
Yeah.
And I think it's really gotten to a point where we need to think creatively about how can we reimagine both the distribution side in terms of having food hubs get into these markets, while also recognizing fully that the model that's worked historically, where you just can go to Whole Foods and move a lot of product, and also with some of the distributors that were larger to move a lot of organic product has changed because there's been this consolidation, and so there's this race to the bottom. So I think the goal for us is how can we get stuff directly to kind of our end client, which for us has predominantly been focused on institutional buyers, some with other business buyers as well. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. God, there's so much. Talk about scratch the surface. Yeah, go ahead, Crystal. Oh, wait, wait 1 moment. I'm going to fix.
Oh, wait.
I'm going to
Oh,
fix
this.
this because it's just I wanted it to aim the other way.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just there. That way, better.
To the sky.
Okay. So, we're
Okay,
back.
we're back.
So there's so much
I know.
interesting to talk about here.
Right.
I think a lot about the consolidation. I think it is strangling our democracy,
Yeah.
and it's not just, of course, in agriculture. It's in everything.
Yeah.
Every industry that we deal with, almost every business that we deal with,
Yeah.
funeral homes,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
They're incredibly consolidated now. There's only actually a couple.
Yeah.
Drugstores.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we have this very much in food, and it's a big deal. Do you think? Well, I have 2 very different questions. First one, let's talk about. All right, I'm going to ask the other one first.
Okay.
Do you think there will be a rebirth of smaller stores ever, or do you think that? I mean, we see that there's a problem, which is that even though it looks like there's a lot of choices, a lot of different stores, it looks like you go in the store. Oh my God. There are so many brands, different things. What an amazing amount of choice. But what we know is that people are actually losing their choice. To go into most supermarkets in America and be able to find some produce that was grown on a good farm with good soil, with people who are doing it in a deeply organic way, it's becoming almost impossible to find.
Right.
People don't know it because
Yeah.
they go, look at all the organic products that's available, but it is all a product of an industrial system.
Right.
And what you all are doing is becoming a rare thing in our stores. Do you think that there will be, as people have a hunger for that, will there be a bunch of new kinds of small chains coming up? Or do you think that it will turn to food delivery What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's a hard call. I mean, I'd like to say that I would hope that we move more in that direction. Like you said, I think we're underestimating the amount of choice we actually have. Like even we were talking yesterday about like the logistics aspect. Like even because we know that our food is not going to be consumed, within a week sometimes, like that limits what varieties you can even grow because you don't, what is their potential shelf life, right? Luckily, we are dealing in like the most highly perishable products ever, which is obviously a huge challenge. But I don't know. I think as long as we are not really dealing with the consolidation as like a true violation of like antitrust, protections or and so forth, I don't know if we're gonna move in that direction, which I know sounds very pessimistic, but it's sort of how it feels. And that's why, though, I will say this, kind of hitting on your question, we feel it's very important on looking at what we do grow. So certainly we grow crops for market, like the things that people want to, your cabbage, your fennel, your tomatoes. But we also are very interested in like growing some crops that are of cultural significance to communities that maybe are not served by like typical markets. And I know right, winter squashes is something we do well. And I know what Cristobal especially is like saving seeds from certain special varieties.
You're saving your own seeds?
Yeah, you should talk about
we are,
chiricota.
we are saving
Yeah.
every single year
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
big portion of the seeds.
Is that improving the strains for you?
I mean, every farmer needs to do that, but it's according with the region and what culture is showing in that region. I think that there is opportunity for farmers like small, medium size. I don't know what is the medium size, but small farmers. They call it small farmers. Opportunity to go through our distribution model, but also there is a lot of microclimates in this area. It's a big opportunity for like this, not only 15 farmers, but also more than that, to grow particular things to feed our community. Personal, I love to say seeds. If I have like a bunch of jars, many jars. Sometimes I totally forgot what kind of seeds, because it's something like not only necessary but satisfactory. And as in order to harvest, we need to sow the seeds, right? And we need to think a little bit more where they come from, right?
Where they come from.
But
And Cristobal, being from Oaxaca, has brought a lot of really unique varieties of crops from Oaxaca. I think our favorite one is chiricota, which we grew like 30,000 pounds of last year, I believe. You should talk more about like how you've bred the seeds over time and how it's such an important crop.
This particular iron, I'm so happy, I'm so glad, and 4 years, I don't know how many, more than, no years, like, I totally forgot right now, pounds of seeds, is feeding our community, not from our region, our small town of Pescadero, but luckily the food bank are serving or giving to the community, other community, on
much
the other
greater
side.
community.
They got surprised because they really love the squashes, and they were asking, and oh, where they come from, and I never, like, for a few years or many years, I didn't get this squash in the stores, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's more than it's very relevant. It's more than pounds of production. I think it's like bringing
The
community-
connection.
the
Yeah.
connection from that community on the other side of the hill to this side,
Yeah.
or for everywhere, right? But yeah,
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Cristobal. But so you all are real organic. You're certified
Yeah,
real
we are.
organic. Are the people in your food hub all organic?
No.
No, it's predominantly organic, but there's some that are not.
Yeah.
And so I think for us the main focus of the food hub is really to serve kind of our region, our community. We try to find most opportunities for farms that are organic and some that are real organic. And we try to encourage folks to shift to real organic as well.
Yeah.
I think because the goal though is to service our community as a whole, we also want to try and find opportunities just for growers across the board. But
you all
yeah.
have been great champions of real organic
Yeah,
out
yeah.
here, and I so appreciate. I can't say thank you because you are us. So
Yeah,
I really
Yeah.
appreciate that you're
Thank you.
part of this. So when you sell organic produce to a food bank, do you get a premium because it's organic, or is
Yeah.
it just produce?
No, and the fact that we do work with non-organic farms, they also the price is there's a price point difference because there is a value into that, and this is true for all our buyers, whether it's institutional or business, or wholesale, whatever. And part of it that's what the market is looking for, and for us, we especially want to give that better price to the organic producer. And so our hope really is that because we are working with buyers that value the organic label and the organic practices, and obviously conveying like what the real organic, like what that means on top of being certified organic, that in some way that it becomes sort of a mechanism by which we convince folks to transition. That is sort of the ideal behind that. And so, right now it seems like there is definitely interest in that.
And I think one thing that's relevant to this particular topic that also speaks a bit to the conversation about consolidation that we were having a moment ago is we're not going to beat the huge distributors at their own game. But what we can do is we can find their blind spots and find what are the areas where they're not serving their communities, their clients. So for example, a moment ago, the different crops that we grow that are more culturally relevant crops, a lot from Oaxaca, like that chile cauta that we mentioned, and a number of other unique crops. Those are things that like major distributors are not going to carry, but yet there's clearly a lot of folks in our communities who want those crops, and especially because it's a crop that they may know from their country they're originally from, but can't find it here in the U.S. So there is a market for those things that's being overlooked. In addition to that, coming back to this topic of organic, we found that a lot of buyers, whether they be businesses or institutions, have set goals, like actual policy goals that are often revolving around sustainability or social impact. And so a lot of them have goals specifically saying that we want to purchase X amount of organic or X amount of local or X amount of produce from a socially disadvantaged farmer under the USDA definition. And what a lot of those buyers that we work with have told us is that when they've worked with the big distributors, the distributors can't even tell them, what country sometimes the product's coming from, much less what farm it's coming from. We can, because we have a relationship with the farmers, and we can tell exactly every detail about the farm, where it's coming from. The buyer then really has full control when they're making decisions of purchasing individual items, of saying, I want this because it's in accordance with our values, our policy goals that we have as an organization, and we can make sure we have the transparency working with us to do so. I think that's a really important part of this entire conversation. And what I'd love to see is get to a point where beyond just the local or organic, for example, I'd love to have that some of the policy goals be a bit going beyond that, kind of like real organic is, where that's also part of their conversations and their particular goals is we want to make, for example, if they set policies saying we want X amount of our produce to be coming from farms that are real organic certified because of all the benefits to society, to eaters, and so on that kind of produce is having, then we could really start making bigger changes. But I think right now there's enough folks who just literally want to know what farm it's coming from. Yeah, that makes a difference.
Do they share? I understand why they would want to buy from you, and it so aligns with the values that people at least aspire to.
Right.
They can't always live their values, but they aspire to that, and it's like, oh, thank goodness somebody is able to do this in a way that we actually support. Do they pass that information on to both their funders and their clients? You know, if it's a school, are they telling the students, hey, this is Brisa Ranch and they're fantastic, aren't you glad we're getting the food from them?
Yeah, no. And I think part of what we're trying to do now is really make ourselves available to those buyers that are committed to working with us, right? So, going to the schools and speaking on, like the farmer who's delivering every week is speaking to you, or coming out to the farm. And we definitely encourage that. And we do see it happen. And I think we've been very lucky, and it's probably not just luck, it's also the dedication and hard work. But I think we have found that these organizations, businesses, institutions really like working with us because it's finding the right, we were talking about this yesterday about the translator for the logistics needs. Sometimes, like as farmers, and we've lived it, like you are in your production, like this is the world you live in, and it's hard to see outside of it. And I think we're sort of that in between that makes it, that are able to convey the needs of the buyer to the producers that we're working with, and vice versa. And so yeah, I do think that they are reaching out, and that's why they want to continue working with us. And so, yeah, as long as the funding is there, because we are very set on the fact that we need to, like, farmers need to get paid, right? It can't just be based on good intentions, but that's
absolutely
what we're seeing.
And how many people work for you on Brisa?
Right now we have 5. We have 6 full-time,
like year-round,
or year-round employees,
plus the 3 of us.
The 3 of us. And then we do have part-time administration help, and then seasonal employees that are from our community, and then will work part-time with us during the main season.
Can I ask a question about, it's my understanding that when California passed their new much higher minimum wage, that included farm labor. Did I get that wrong?
Yes.
No, that's correct.
And
it does include farm labor.
It includes farm labor.
That was a big step, right? They didn't used to.
No,
they used to, yeah.
And it's and the minimum wage in our county is higher than it is in the state.
In the state, so what is the
it's
minimum
$17.95.
$17.95
and
is
it's
your
for
minimum
everyone.
wage.
Yeah, it's the minimum wage.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Has that worked out well for your farm?
I mean,
we pay above it.
You pay above that.
Yeah, I think it's a high minimum wage, but I think like there's obviously you it's also an expensive area to live in, and that's the reason for the minimum wage being high.
Yeah.
Frankly, proportionally, it probably should be higher. Just compared, that makes it very challenging for other elements of how businesses operate and so on. But it just, we have high cost of living where we are. But I think the one other challenge with not a challenge, but just sort of a different thing is there's been a bit of a strange change in regulation with overtime. Has been a difference in farming, and I know a lot of folks in California have had challenges with this, where if you're over 40 hours a week, you're given overtime regardless of industry or of time of year.
Time and a half.
Yeah, time and a half.
Right.
And so, for that situation, that really increases by an extra over $9, give or take. So what ends up happening in our community and a lot of other communities is, because a lot of businesses don't want to pay people overtime, they're very strict now about 40 hours a week, when before a lot of farm workers would want to work, maybe a 6th day or work some extra hours. And so we kind of have this like musical chairs where it's like, employees from one farm, after they've gotten to their 40 hours a week, they'll work their Saturday at another farm, and then that farm will have literally, it's a funny funny
Yeah.
change.
yeah,
that's probably
I'll
a
work
bit more of a
around for the
complication.
people who really
Yeah.
want the hours.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
but the farmer can't afford to
Yeah.
to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. No, and I mean the minimum wage increase. I mean there are challenges as a business owner. Obviously, you know, you're trying to keep up, and make sure that there is something at the end of the day for you to be able to take home. And we're a 3-member partnership, right? So, I think it's great, and we always try to keep above that. I think the increasing every year makes it harder and harder for us to do that. But yeah, we definitely see the reason for why
Yeah.
that is.
We could talk a long time, but probably you have workshops to get to. I just wanted to point out, I thought it was so interesting that you were talking about Pie Ranch, and I interviewed Tom Brose a few days ago, and he also was talking about Pie Ranch and how Jared was going around and really introducing the concept of CSAs to California, and it was a radical idea at the time. Now it's very common, and it's
Right.
really taken off. He didn't invent it. It was happening a little bit elsewhere,
Right.
but he was an early adopter here. And I love that you all came out of Pie Ranch, and that wasn't what you brought out at all,
No.
right? So it's beautiful to see that there are so many different ways that organic farming can succeed and can look.
Right.
They all take a lot of hard work and creativity and intelligence to put it together,
Yeah.
which you're doing. I noticed before we started, when you were talking, you were all talking in Spanish, and that's kind of the common language, the way English is in science and around the world.
Right. Right.
So in California agriculture, Spanish is the
Yeah.
common language,
Yeah.
Yes.
and I don't think I've met a farm owner who didn't speak Spanish fluently, whether they were Anglo or not.
Yeah.
So could you just briefly tell me your cultural background of how you came to this? Like Veronica,
Yeah.
where do you come from?
Right. So I'm originally from Miami, Florida, which is sort of that very special corner of the world where Spanish is very much a primary language for all, and it's a melting pot of many, backgrounds and countries of origin. My mother was from Venezuela, and my father from Guatemala. And so definitely coming with that, as the child, and my siblings and I relate to this, like, of parents from 2 different Latin American countries, you really appreciate like the very specific cultural differences, like specificities of every single country. Moving out here, just from every region in Mexico, is completely different. And anyway, so I grew up in that environment. Went off to study something completely different, and was doing some work internationally that it came to agriculture. And when I came out to California, I was like, oh my goodness, my background, my Spanish is my native language. I'm like, there's something here. Like, there is a way of me being able to like fully experience what it is to be a farmer because of that language. And right now our team, even though they are English native speakers, our common language is Spanish. Like, that is a language that we speak to everyone.
A little Spanglish.
A little
thrown in.
Spanglish. Absolutely. That is actually my language, by the way.
Yeah,
Spanglish
Spanglish.
is the language I speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's funny how every operation, and especially in our coast where we are really building teams, we see a lot of California agriculture, seasonal workers, you come in and out. No, in our community, you're building a team, and to see all the different backgrounds, different regions from Mexico, and Central America in our community, in our farm, and to have that common language. So yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
special.
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cristobal, how about you? What's your history?
Well, I am from Oaxaca, Mexico. That I said I came to this country in 1989.
How old were you then?
Oh, almost 18.
Yeah.
But Spanish is obviously I grew up with, my community in Mexico with only Spanish, and coming here it was like, okay, solo el patrón habla español, inglés y español, okay, all workers only Spanish, no, only the boss
Yeah.
English is Spanish, no, to communicate every single day. But I'm still learning the new language for me. But I feel like, I think how to say. I have a lot of respect for my culture and my ancestors. Because I learned a lot from them, and still I have I would like to, in some point, teach a little bit of my knowledge that came from my ancestors, right? So English is hard. I know it's hard, but we are here. And
Yeah.
Oaxaca is beautiful, and Mexico also.
Now, in
yeah.
Oaxaca, were you speaking Spanish, or was there a different dialect?
A little bit Zapoteca,
Yeah,
but not much.
not much. Mostly Spanish.
Mostly Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly Spanish.
Okay.
And, it is a big in la ciudad, in Oaxaca City. You can meet mostly on all languages.
Yeah, a lot of languages. Yeah.
From Oaxaca, like also from Guerrero, they come and join in the market, like El Mercado de Abastos, and they try to speak in different languages, and there is one or two representatives that guide the conversation in order to get the good deals, always vice versa, right?
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. Actually, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And Cole?
So I guess to give a bit of context, I have like my family that farms in the Midwest and in Southern California. So Midwest is more my mom's side. My dad's side is from Southern California. On my dad's side, we're Greek. This is actually the 100-year anniversary when my family first immigrated to the United States back in 1926. And I guess I'll get to Spanish in a moment, but I think this is kind of like I think this is sort of a funny story, or not a funny story, but it's an interesting story in the context of agriculture. But my family that immigrated here from an island off the coast of Turkey, originally called Lesbos, and different parts of my family, when they immigrated here, they had kind of a tough time in the United States at the beginning. They came out and worked on laying track on a railroad for the Southern Pacific Railroad Company from like West Texas out to Oxnard, California, and kind of like the southern end of the Central Coast. And it was a pretty rough environment. They like just rough conditions and so on. And we're doing that for a couple of years until they finally finished the railroad line in Oxnard. And when they did, the railroad company fired everybody because there's no more work. And what's wild is that at the time period, for them to buy farmland up in the neighboring county from Oxnard, in Ventura County, was cheaper than the railroad ticket to go back to West Texas. And so that they decided we're gonna buy a small bit of farmland, a couple acres of farmland, start a flower farm. And the flower farm lasted for like 50 years after that, up until I was about 10 years old. And I think that is such an interesting difference in terms of what we see in terms of opportunities for farmers now, especially for folks in like immigrant communities, because at that time period, that was a very viable way of starting a business. You kind of had like a real pot at the end of the rainbow, if you so to speak. It's so much harder now for folks who are across the board who are getting into farming, whether they're from the U.S. or not, but especially I think for folks who immigrated here, where it's much harder to buy land, much harder to start a business. We've really done the opposite of progressed in terms of making it like the small farming a viable way of making a living and getting started. So I think that also is like kind of a motivating factor in terms of in terms of some of the work that I think I do personally. But yeah, I grew up speaking a lot of Spanish and a lot of Spanglish, basically. Yeah, so and it's funny too because I think I know a lot more like kind of the Spanish that's like Mexican Spanish because it's in our community. When we go to visit Veto's family in Miami, it's like Cuban Spanish that you hear. Well, I mean, her family's Venezuelan, Guatemalan, but like you hear a lot of Cuban Spanish.
A lot
and
of
it's
Cuban Spanish.
very different. Yeah, it's very different. It's funny to So.
But I actually like that you mentioned that the whole, like in your background as being, I guess, second generation. But like, I think that's why we're farmers, and that's sort of the prior, like where we focus a lot of our work in growing the food in our little piece of corner of the world, even though it's not really ours yet, but we treat it as such.
Yeah.
But why we're so motivated to work with so many other farmers that we see, because we know those stories and we're able to communicate directly. And I think people come to us because they feel like they can share that and that we can work with them in a way that they feel comfortable doing. So in many ways, the being able to be native Spanish speakers and like of these, like a sort of a mix of cultures, I don't know, it feels like it positions us really well to be that sort of intermediary as we're trying to sort of develop what is this new iteration of agriculture in our community, in our region going to look like, given that it is majority made up by, immigrant, farmers in our area at least. So anyway.
Yeah, more recent immigrant.
More recent.
We're all immigrants, pretty much.
Absolutely.
But
more
recent immigrants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my people. They came over just in time to get drafted for the Civil War, but take them off the boat and put them in a uniform and give them a gun. Okay.
Yeah,
they're just getting away from potato famines. Thank you, all three of you, so much. This was a great conversation.
Oh, good.
Really a lot of fun.
I
thank you
hope,
too. We really
it's
appreciate it.
something that the listeners will appreciate.
No, and I mean, it's funny. I noticed we didn't even get into our growing practices.
I know. I was like, oh my God, where do we?
Yeah, I know.
I was wondering. I was like,
but I know. But
this will be part two.
That'll be part two.
Yeah.
But no, just we appreciate what you guys are doing. We think it's really important to have this differentiation in the marketplace in terms of having real organic. It's we would spend another hour talking about it, but it's something that we see as very critical, both in terms of just the values that we have personally, but also I think how we see the market, as if we can get the market there, then we can really shift how land is actually managed to a large degree. So it's a process, but yeah, we appreciate the work y'all do there.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Organic Podcast. If you have a spare minute today, the single most effective way you can help us grow this movement and others to find this podcast is by leaving us a rating and a review wherever you listen to our podcast. You can find a video version of this interview on our website or on our YouTube channel, and you can join us every Sunday for a new episode featuring voices from the organic movement. And if you haven't already, please sign up for our weekly newsletter at realorganicproject.org/email. See you next time.